podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Technology is amazing sometimes.
To me. Technology is amazing to me every single day, as you know. I'm just shocked when it works. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Sanity podcast with Dave Briggs and Allison Camerata. We're very excited today because we're getting the band back together. We are going to go live with Dr. Jen Ashton, who we used to have on regularly on our Fox and Friends weekend.
15, 20 years ago?
Yeah. Yes.
God, that feels dated.
I know.
And we're going to talk about what she's doing that can help all of you, but we're also going to talk about arguably, no politics, one of the biggest stories on the planet today, which is Ozempic, Wegovy, better known as GLP-1s, diabetes drugs that are changing the world as we know it in terms of weight loss.
And other things. I mean, it's not just weight loss. What's really interesting about this is that it's gone way beyond weight loss. It can help with addictions. It can help with depression. It helps with your mood. It can help with all sorts of things that they haven't even figured out yet. Getting your brain right.
Alzheimer's potentially.
Alzheimer's, yeah.
Which to me has become reason number one that I'm considering getting on it. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So it is changing the world. I mean, look, there are estimates that 15 million people are already on GLP-1s. Are you? Have you had good experiences? Have you had bad experiences? We want to know your feedback on this conversation. We also want to have your questions to Dr. Jennifer Aniston, who's the longtime chief medical correspondent at ABC News. You've certainly seen her on Good Morning America. She is fabulous, and I think she is already set to join us live to begin this awesome conversation. A couple other people
would like to
requested
join
to join our live,
that's
but not quite Jen Aniston
yet. Yeah. Is Jennifer Aniston joining us?
Oh, did I say Aniston?
Because this is going to be a fantastic live. It's going to be Jen Ashton and Jennifer Aniston, which is, I mean, if Jennifer Aniston is listening.
We'll take either Jen.
Yeah.
I love them both.
I do too. I love them both. They're me too. They're both fabulous. I think Jennifer Ashton knows more about Ozempic, but I could be wrong. I mean, who knows what Jen Aniston is doing?
That could be her secret, because she is fantastic.
We're just spreading rumors.
Well. And here she is. So we will, without...
It'll be a surprise for everybody.
Reunited, we are getting the band back from about, 15 plus years ago. I think she is all set to join us here. And oh my gosh. We love you. We miss you.
You guys too. Can we do this in person next time?
Yeah.
Please, we will take you to an awesome dinner. Westport is amazing, or we'll come to you. Either way.
Let's do it.
Oh, that we're going to take you up on that, so be careful.
I mean, you make that sound like a threat. It would be a pleasure, and you guys can call me Jen Aniston whenever you want.
You're equally gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Jen, it's so great to see you. Oh, I mean, gosh, so much has happened in all of our lives since we last connected, but you're just killing it. You're crushing it,
As
Jen.
are you guys.
Thanks.
Wait, how is it
But
possible? Can we just let everyone know that we all met and worked together in, I'm going to tell you the year.
what was it?
2006.
Is that right?
Oh my God.
That's before my son was born, before your one of your kids.
Is that is we were looking for a photo, Jen, and we couldn't find it
online.
God, all right, I'll look for a couple also. I mean, it's just amazing how none of us have aged.
I know. That's crazy. Like, and you and I don't even have gray hair. It's crazy.
Well,
but I mean, Jen, I just want to take a minute to say how far you've come, how far we've all come. But we were in the green room at Fox and Friends every weekend with Gene Simmons, the members of Kiss, Russell Brand. I mean, like the cast of characters that came in and out of that green room. There's a book there.
yeah,
obviously.
it was pretty crazy, right? Like and we had a really good time. Like it was really, really great. And I mean, you know what? I feel really lucky. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. When it's such a small world, the media world and television. And when you work with someone, you literally become like I don't know, camp friends or school friends. And it like all those memories come back and we, I've been cheering you guys on, even though we haven't seen each other in person for a long time, hence the soon Connecticut reunion. But yeah, it's been a long ass time.
Yeah, totally agree. And also, there's something about sharing time together at 6 a.m., every week
On a
that
weekend.
is like
Ridiculous.
very bonding.
Joel,
Very bonding.
I'll say,
You say it's a small pool of media, it is shrinking all the time. So it is getting to be
oh, oh
a
yeah,
smaller group.
oh yeah,
Speaking of shrink, of course, Americans are shrinking, and we can't wait to hear about your 8-week wellness experiment. That is going to be really exciting. But everyone's shrinking. You watch the Oscars, shrinking. Grammys, shrinking.
yeah,
You go to the doctor's office. I just saw my best friend who was 40 pounds heavier 6 months ago.
yeah.
Everybody's shrinking
But wait, did
because
he
of.
tell you? Did he tell you that he was on Ozempic or one of these weight loss drugs, or did you just see him?
I asked him.
So
It
you
was
saw,
noticeable.
right? This is Jen. This is what's happening. I run into friends, and they come in, and for a minute, my brain scrambles, and it goes like, brrr, like
Yeah.
what's happening? I go, oh, like they haven't disclosed it, but I go, oh, they're must be on a weight loss drug.
So I'm so glad you guys are talking about this because, back, oh my gosh, 9 years ago, I got board certified in obesity medicine. Okay. There are like 4,000 doctors in the entire country who are board certified in obesity medicine. We need like 40,000, right? But at that time, everyone knew that semaglutide was the most effective weight loss drug. It was not yet FDA approved, of course, at that time. Now it is. And yeah, you're right. You're seeing all these people losing weight. And I have some pretty strong opinions on it. First of all, I think, yeah, it needs to be more accessible in terms of cost, in terms of the physicians who are prescribing it. Like, this is not a medication that you should be getting in a strip mall at like a day spa where you don't, if you have a complication or an issue, there's no MD there to help you through it. But I really believe that people in this country who are diagnosed with the conditions overweight and obesity are quite literally damned if they do and damned if they don't. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. They're judged and kind of, made to feel less than medically, socially, you name it, if they're overweight or obese. And then if they use one of these FDA approved drugs to lose weight, they're judged and like they're in a no-win situation. And I want to be very clear. It is so well known that if you are overweight or obese, it is not a matter of if you will have a negative health consequence, but when. And it is not a matter of willpower. Like, just eat some carrot sticks and you'll lose weight. Okay. There are over 40 genes associated with obesity. It's metabolic, hormonal, environmental, behavioral, some other medications that are so necessary for people to be on come with a known side effect of weight gain. So it's not as simple as just eat some carrots and you'll lose the weight, right? That is not
Right.
conclusively not the issue. So if you look at it like mental illness or high blood pressure or diabetes or any of those things, you would change your behavior and take a medication if necessary. This should be no different. And, everyone just gets so worked up about this. And I really think that it should, everyone should stay in their lane. If you want to take one of these drugs and you need to take one of them and you are working with a healthcare provider who's credentialed in this, knock yourself out. Like, I think that it is absolutely the benefits outweigh the risks. But to be crystal clear, nothing is zero risk, and these drugs are no exception to that.
Thank you, everyone for joining us. By the way, if you just are jumping in, Allison Camerata, Dave Briggs, Dr. Jen Ashton, we are talking about the Ozempic craze, better known as GLP-1s, which is technically the class, Wegovy. There are several other drugs beyond Ozempic. Are we abusing these drugs, though? Because the estimates are between 6 and 10%, more than 15 million Americans are already on them, and they are, at their core, diabetes drugs. Are we abusing them?
Well, it depends. I think, let's put it this way. There's the potential, Dave, for any drug to be abused. And sure, I think there are probably, I wouldn't know what the percentage is, people who are abusing them. However, in terms of what you mentioned appropriately and correctly so, that they are drugs initially designed for type 2 diabetes. Remember, the first GLP-1, you know when it was FDA approved for the management of type 2 diabetes? 2005. 20 years ago. So yeah, we've only started talking about it in the last couple of years. But as I said, when I got board certified in obesity medicine 10 years ago, these drugs were being used off-label. Off-label use of FDA-approved medications happens every single day in this country. It's totally fine if everyone, doctor and patient, understand how to do that and risks, benefits, and options to doing so. And so I always say, and this is so important for people who are listening, and you guys can feel free to quote me on this. You may remember I've been saying this for 20 years. It's not just what are the risks of doing it and what are the benefits of doing it. You have to ask, when you're talking about, let's say, GLP-1s, what are the risks of taking it? What are the risks of not taking it? Important. What are the benefits of taking it? And what are the benefits of not taking it? So you should be, it's 4 questions, not 2. And so when you ask those questions, which by the way is how I like to say, I'd rather teach someone how to think like a doctor than teach them one random doctor fact. Those 4 questions are really important, right? Because if you're talking about someone who has 100 pounds of weight to lose, I can answer those very easily. You know, the risks of not taking this drug, or that person is going to continue to deal with the condition of obesity and all of the negative risks that come along with that. And, you know, then you can start putting in things like rare side effects or cost or social stigma or nausea or whatever. You just fill out that grid of those 4 questions and the answer should be pretty clear. I think that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would flip the conversation. I mean, I would flip the question that Dave asked. He said, are people taking it too much? Are we abusing it? I would say, are we taking it enough? I mean, now that it is being depicted as a wonder drug, a miracle drug for addiction, as Dave said, Alzheimer's, for any sort of craving, combating any sort of craving, for doing all sorts of mental depression. It combats depression, mood disorders. I mean, maybe more of us, even those of us without a weight problem, should be on it.
Well, that's a really interesting question, Allison, because I have been talking a lot, and I talk about this in my free newsletter a lot. I really think that the next phase or era in these drugs, and I want to be very clear, I don't have any connection with Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk, okay? Just to be crystal clear on that. I think the next phase in these drugs is going to be prevention, actually. It's probably not going to be at the same high dose, but if I were a research scientist working with, you know, in this area for these pharmaceutical companies, I would say, yeah, let's start looking at it in terms of prevention. Why? Because we know with 70% of the US population overweight or obese, that as someone hits middle age, everyone starts gaining weight, and every adverse health effect that we see later in life, every single one, without exception, is connected in some way with excess body weight and obesity. So if you know that, maybe the next frontier is going to be as prevention. That is TBD. We don't know, but I think you bring up a really interesting point, and even more the reason why we just have to drop the social stigma about this. You know, it's just, we have bigger fish to fry.
I don't think the stigma, at least in my world,
I have
doesn't
social
exist.
envy.
Yeah, I don't notice it. And in fact, I think it's the opposite. I think people are very happy for one another. Although there are times that I say, was it right for you, doctor, if you were, let's say, 15 pounds overweight and you just kind of wanted, look, I've looked at my tummy and thought, maybe
You're a
is that
mess,
the,
Dave. You're just, you've let yourself go.
I am not looking for compliments. I'm just curious, is that the wrong technique? Is that a shortcut for someone that needs to
But can people
eat
get,
better
if you're on 15, if you're
and make
15
better
pounds
decisions?
overweight, can people, will doctors prescribe it for you?
I'm sure there are doctors who would prescribe anything. That doesn't make it right. But I think, you know, to Dave's question, it depends why, right? And that's where the individualization in the practice of medicine and healthcare, you know, it's easy to lose that. I think that an example is, you know, if you look at someone and you say, well, they're 10 or 15 pounds overweight, should they take it? It depends what they're doing, right? And if they're not eating well, not exercising, you know, not prioritizing all of the other things that I call the controllables, then the answer is no, right? But if they are doing all those things, or if they're on possibly a medication that has a known side effect of weight gain, then maybe, you know, it is a risk benefit decision that they make with their doctor, that they say, yeah, you know, I know it's only 15 pounds, but if I'm going to continue to have this extra weight, and by the way, fat is an active hormonal organ. Most people don't realize that. It literally produces hormones and inflammation, right? If you know that, then maybe you say, okay, well, you know, this is an off-label use and I'm already maximizing everything else that I can control. So maybe it is appropriate. You know, that's an individual, that's certainly not in the national guidelines right now. I mean, we're at the beginning of all that, right? I mean, it's hard enough for people to get their doctors or their insurance companies to cover this drug when it is indicated. So we have to start there.
Right, because it's super expensive. Yeah.
Yep.
It is around $1,000 a month, and it's in some places in Europe like $90 a month. How do we solve that? And do we think Medicare and Medicaid will begin covering these things?
Well, you know what? I spoke at a roundtable for the American Heart Association last year to 32 of the top CEOs in the world about obesity in the workplace. And one of them said, and this is, I double checked this fact, it is accurate, that if every single American who qualified for a GLP-1 had it covered by insurance, it still would not cross the curves in saving all of the money that treating their obesity would save. Now, that was a mega depressing fact for me because when I heard that, I thought, well, then there's no hope that insurance companies will ever pay for it. Because if I were talking to the big three insurance companies, I would say, why don't you guys wake up? Like, don't you understand it's actually smarter financially for you to cover these expensive drugs than for you to wait and deal with the depression, joint problems, skin problems, cardiovascular disease, cancer, all of the things that come along with obesity? But when I heard that, I thought, oh God, this is, you know, and the other not so great thing is that if the two makers of these drugs, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, shunted all 100% of their manufacturing to just GLP-1s, it would take them 5 years to make enough of this drug for the global demand.
Wow. And Goldman Sachs says it's going to grow 16 times greater by 2030.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's
I know.
unbelievable. But what I do think, because you know, I'm kind of like a glasses half full type of person and doctor. I do, rather than talk about all the things that are wrong or problematic, and as we just said, there's plenty. I really instead prefer to, you know, kind of focus mind on the positives with these drugs, which are they are changing lives. They are changing people's interactions, social lives, work lives, medical lives, you name it. And I think that's a really good thing. I really, really do.
It's interesting that you say that, Jen, because I was just reading a New York Times article, I think it was New York Times, about how there's also unintended consequences. If you suddenly lose, if you're married, it changes the dynamic. If you have a different relationship with your body and the body that your husband or spouse has come to know for the past 25 years, like people are talking about how it changes the dynamic so
Yeah.
fundamentally that sometimes it's good, often, probably, most of the time it's good, but sometimes it's disorienting.
Yeah.
And people like marriage counseling because it's so different.
Well, I think all those things are kind of, some of them, the unanticipated consequences of it. Someone just mentioned and made a point that I want to mention and elaborate on about losing a lot of lean muscle tissue, especially for women after menopause or during menopause. So that's a headline that, as is the case with many medical headlines, didn't get explained properly. It floated the one liner, the headline, like, you lose all this muscle mass. And people were like, oh, that's it. These drugs are horrible. Not so fast. So the explanation behind that headline, which is super important, is that number one, in someone with obesity, okay, yeah, they have more muscle proportionately because of their size and weight, but their muscle mass is not functional or optimally functioning or healthy muscle. It's dysfunctional muscle. Okay, that's very important because if someone has obesity loses, which they could on these drugs, 45% of their lost weight due to muscle, it's not like, oh, they're losing the best muscle and now they're really screwed. People need to understand that, again, risk benefit, they might be losing a greater percentage of muscle mass than with other types of weight loss, but what they're losing is not healthy. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, when we understand that these drugs, compared to other FDA approved weight loss medications, cause a higher percentage of weight loss to come from muscle, could be as high as 45%, right? Normally, let's say if any of the three of us just go on a diet or we lose 5 to 10 pounds, probably 25% of our lost weight will be from muscle. So you see a greater percentage with these drugs coming from muscle versus fat, right? But there are ways to combat that. Increase protein in our diet, resistance training, lifting weights. So I think it's super important, when you hear that, everything, someone just said it's a trade-off. Perfect way to think about it. Everything is a trade-off, right? Yes, you're losing weight, you're losing fat, but it's not necessarily healthy muscle that you're losing. And the benefits of all that weight coming off far outweigh the potential for losing a little bit greater percentage due to muscle. And there are ways to deal with that.
Wow, a believer. Just want to welcome everyone back in. Dave Briggs, Allison Camerata, the Sanity Podcast, speaking to Dr. Jennifer Ashton about GLPs, Ozempic taking over the planet. I still see, Jen, that more than half of people stop taking them after 2 years. As I understand GLPs, they are a lifelong commitment. They are an appetite suppressant that you should be on forever. Does that stat tell you people are altering their diet or they're putting the weight back on?
So it's probably a little of both, and it's a great question. I think that what you also don't hear spoken about enough slash at all is what happens when someone reaches their goal weight or their target weight. And what I used to do in my actual practice and what I now talk about, in the newsletter, or I used to talk about this on the air, is that's a whole different phase. Like we talked about potentially the prevention use of these drugs. When you achieve your goal weight, then you go to the maintenance phase, right? Now, there's no maintenance algorithm from the drug makers. So the individual doctor needs to sit with the patient and say, okay, if you were taking this drug once a week, Now let's drop the dose down to the, I'm just telling you what I used to do in my practice, by the way, and this is meant to be individualized. Let's drop the dose to the lowest dose and try that every once a week. And if you don't put any more weight on, let's try to space that out to twice a week, every 2 weeks. And then if you don't gain any weight, let's space it out to one injection every 3 weeks. And so you're right, Dave, potentially it's a lifelong thing. But some people, especially those people who have been on these medications for a while, actually change their relationship with food, their behaviors with food, with alcohol, with smoke, all kinds of things. And so, sure, a percentage of them absolutely will regain the weight, but a percentage of them won't. And a percentage of them can be maintained on, one shot once a month, let's say, at the lowest dose. We don't really know what those maintenance protocols will look like yet, but I believe there's something for anyone in there.
Jen, we want to get to your program and we want to get to agenda in 1 minute. But one last question,
Yeah.
because it appears to play on the kind of craving,
Brain. Yeah.
the brain, the pleasure center of the brain, the reward center. Are you finding that it affects people's sex life?
There started to be a couple of reports about that, but I think we're going to see, remember that reward center that you mentioned is sex, gambling, shopping, potentially people who have a compulsive kind of draw to any number of behaviors, right? They don't have to be drinking or eating. So I think we're going to, the verdict on that is still out because, there, as there, we're going to see it now, like nail growth, hair growth. Literally, people are going to be looking at everything. And I haven't read anything specifically on sex or, intimate behavior, but it's possible. There are always, look, when you look at a package insert, and I'm sure your audience is very familiar with this, you will see literally every possible side effect that has ever been reported. And when you have hundreds of millions of people around the world on this class of medication, even something that happens rarely, just simple math, right? If something happens like 1 out of 100,000 times, you and the three of us wouldn't worry too much about that. But if you have 100 million people on that, all of a sudden that small group, I can't do the math fast enough, but it's going to add up, right?
I'll tell you, it's had devastating impacts on the liquor industry because everyone who's told me they drink less and the snack industry as well. Two quick questions from viewers before we talk about
Yeah.
agenda. One, are they dangerous for a person with an enlarged thyroid and or goiter? And one other question is the possibility of vision loss with Wegovy. Can you answer either or both?
That sounds serious.
Yeah, so yeah, so quickly, both of them. It has a black box warning for a rare type of thyroid cancer, medullary thyroid cancer, that was seen in lab animals. Um, I have to be honest with you and tell you something funny about these. As I said, I knew about the efficacy of semaglutide back in 2015. I did not have any experience prescribing it. I finally met a woman doctor named Ann Peters, who's out in Los Angeles at UCLA. She is a preeminent diabetes physician. Quite literally writes the protocols for the management of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And I asked her about it, and she said, I've literally never seen a case of thyroid cancer with a patient on these medications, nor have I spoken to any physician who has seen a case. Now, that was reassuring to me. That doesn't mean the risk is zero, of course. And if you have an enlarged thyroid or you have a nodule or you have a goiter, that's a perfect example of why these drugs shouldn't be available in a strip mall at a Medi Spa, right? You should have that discussion with your healthcare provider and say, are we going to monitor my thyroid? Are we going to get yearly ultrasounds, or, how to know how to feel for it yourself? Are we going to do thyroid function tests, that kind of thing? The vision loss, it's interesting. My husband, who takes Ozempic preventatively, not my recommendation, by the way, even though I'm all for it, his doctor put him on it. he had a non-serious eye issue that the ophthalmologist actually thought could be related to the Ozempic. Again, not serious, but this is why you have to balance risk versus benefit. And why, someone who needs to, drop 3 pounds before a wedding shouldn't be taking these, right? Because if it causes that rare side effect, you're probably going to feel a little bit silly for taking it.
That's really good. That's really helpful information, Jen. All right, so are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, so yesterday you started this 8-week transformation process for everybody who follows agenda. And so, I mean, where do you want to start? Do you want to tell us
Oh my
first about
God.
and
Yes.
that you have launched since we were in the green room with Gene Simmons?
So first of all, thank you guys so much for asking about it. I'll give you the story behind it because it's as significant as what it is. When I left ABC News July 1st, I really didn't know what this next phase, very, very similar to you, Allison. Like I was like, look, you know, I mean, by the way, that should be another episode for all of us, right? Like what we went through personally and oh my God, right? But I really thought, look, I've been through a lot of tragedy, but a lot of wonderful things recently. I've worked a lot. The pandemic almost killed me on the air, burnout wise. And I really wanted to focus on women's health, obesity medicine, and nutrition. That's what I'm credentialed in. That's what I wanted to focus on. And I wasn't sure what that was going to look like, but I thought, you know what? Let me just take a minute. I had just started Agenda with a Jen like Jennifer.
I love it.
Free, thank
Love
you. Free weekly newsletter. And I thought, I've been having fun writing that, but I want to spend the next 6 months, investing in me. And I decided to do my own 6-month wellness experiment. And I partnered with trainer Corey Rowe. And I was like, look, I I need I need some kind of miracle resuscitation, right? So we started, like, I knew about the nutrition, I knew about the wellness, but I really needed his help with the fitness. And I announced it on my Instagram and it totally exploded. And people were following it and then they started asking for it. And so at the end of last year, probably November, so many people had asked me to supply it for my followers that I put this team together. We started scrambling to get all the videos, all the content, the actual workouts that I did, the meal plans that I followed, and put them on a platform where people could participate in it. So it launched the actual cohort, which is, and someone just said they love it. Thank you. I'm so excited. It started yesterday. People started signing up about 2 weeks ago, and we actually had to cap it at 5,000 people. 5,000 people. And every single day, there will be another one, by the way. So if your listeners want to sign up, they can go to experiment.joinagenda.com or look at it on my Instagram and there'll be a sign up for the next one. First of all, a couple of distinctive things about it. It's less than $1 a day, and that was super important to me because things are expensive AF right now, and I wanted there to be zero barrier for entry for someone to be like, guess what? I can find 99 cents a day for myself, right? It is a 3-part program: fitness, nutrition, and wellness, me and trainer Corey Rowe. And literally the comments in this squad and cohort of people bring tears to my eyes. People are loving it. They are so excited about it. It is so much content, combination of videos and PDFs. And that it's been so well received that we're going to do like the second 3 months and then the third 3 months. And then who knows? I mean, we could be meeting at a live retreat soon. I mean, I don't know where it's gonna lead, but it is distinctive because everyone does it together. So you guys will have to wait for the next one to sign up.
Well, I mean, Dave is interested. Are men involved or just
Yes,
women?
men are involved 100%.
Okay, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Then I'm definitely in. Is it eating? Is it exercise?
So
Is it
it's a combination. I give you a shopping list, meal plans, the nutritional science behind the approach. The wellness themes are like, one week, this week is about sleep. There's other ones about, alcohol. And the second and third months will be amazing as well. It kind of does, and you guys, we know this, right? Because this used to be our world on television. I present the science behind something. So let's say like intermittent fasting. I tell you the science behind it, how to incorporate it, because remember, the word is experiment. It is not a challenge. Challenges you can fail, right? Experiments, it's all about curiosity and learning. And so with everything, whether it's the fitness, the nutritional science, or the wellness, those are the three parts. But I give you the science, then we give you the program. And look, if you do, I shouldn't say this, but if you did 50% of it, you're going to wind up feeling and looking and being better at the end than you are today.
Oh, that's
100%.
I want an exercise program that I just do 50%.
I was going to say, this one, the
Damn,
exercise.
I do.
Karen says her husband is partnering with her. He's 68, she's 63. They are loving it. There's just been compliment after compliment
Oh,
pouring in. So,
oh,
and a lot of people saying they're very eager for the next
oh.
round. If I could just ask you two
Yeah.
quick questions in the headlines. One, the Surgeon General weighing in on this terrifying cancer warning about any alcohol consumption, not mass alcohol consumption, that it leads to 6 types of cancer, and that any drinking is bad for you, can lead for cancer. Let me just leave you with that one, because the other one will take a little bit more of a minute. Do you buy that? Is there overreaction to it? Should we all quit drinking everything?
I mean, look, first of all, I know the former Surgeon General very well. He's very smart. He's very well intentioned. He actually, unlike a lot of prior Surgeon Generals, is a spectacular communicator, in my opinion. And I don't disagree with him. I think that, look, is it part of our culture and part of many other cultures? Of course it is. I kind of take the slightly 80-20, as they're saying, the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of the time I would avoid it. 20% of the time, if you're in a situation where it makes more sense for you experientially, if that makes sense, right? Like if you're going to say, wow, this is going to be better if I have a margarita on the beach, or have a delicious glass of red wine with this Italian dinner, or have a glass of champagne at someone's wedding, then I think you should do it. Because listen, we do a lot of things that we know cause cancer or are bad for us. All right. This just happens to be kind of the low hanging fruit. And people overdo it. And I think what I've learned, and I share a lot of this in the newsletter and in the 8-week wellness experiment, is that before the last 7 or 8 months, it was really mindless for me, really mindless. Like if I went out to dinner for any reason, right? Business dinner, social dinner, I was like a Pavlovian dog. Like the server would come over and I would be like, Blanco tequila on the rocks with a slice of orange, like immediately, immediately, right? Like,
Yeah, same.
and by the way, I never had ever more than 2 drinks. I'm to and through. That's my motto, right? But 2 drinks, and I say for no good reason, adds up, right? And so now I've found that I've started to change my behavior in those settings, and I don't miss it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't miss it.
Like, what now when the waiter comes over, what do you order?
But sparkling water, like Pellegrino with lime. But
Right.
so to give you like an idea, I would say probably 3 to 4 nights a week have one, let's say one, rarely two, but one tequila each night. And by the way, remember a serving, if you go to a restaurant, that's not one serving, folks. That's two.
2 to 3, maybe 4. Yeah.
In one glass, right? They're just like, so that would be, let's say 3 servings, three drinks a week, maybe 5, 6 servings a week. I'm probably down to 3 drinks a month now.
Oh my God, I'm
Wow.
desperately, I'm so jealous because I am drinking way too much. We know we got to let you go. I am curious your thoughts on RFK and his impact on our nation's health. I was heartened to know that he wants to get some of the chemicals out of our food, that red dyes are finally being banned after some 30 years. On the other hand, we have a measles outbreak in Texas, and he can't even stand up and say, go get vaccinated, for Christ's sake. Should we be heartened or fearful of his impact on our nation's health?
Well, first of all, didn't he say yesterday, oh, now we should get vaccinated against measles? So
He kind of tiptoed that line without saying, I encourage everyone to go get vaccinated.
so here's my thought on it. I think it's really, really important that people who are making medical and public health recommendations are credentialed to do so. Okay, that's number one. I don't care how interested, passionate, how much you read, it would be like me weighing in on the Supreme Court. I don't have a degree in law. I don't know anything about constitutional law, so I think that's the first thing. And the other thing, and listen, with respect to RFK Jr., I I have to say, I have not spent a lot of time, just because I've been busy with agenda, listening to every single thing he says. And I do want to give anyone the chance. However, again, I go back to credentials, right? And also what the three of us know, because we lived it for like 2 decades, is that remember this saying, you guys? The messenger can be as important as the message. Remember who used to say that, right? Our
Yep.
former boss. And that is true. And it is particularly true when you talk about medicine and science. And we've seen it go very wrong in the last 5 years when on both sides of this landscape, people have, screwed up their credibility and their trust and their communication with the American public or with viewers or followers or patients. And you don't get a second chance to do that when you talk about medicine and health. People have lost you. That is it. They are not going to listen to anything you say. And what I worry about with RFK Jr. is that he is so polarizing that even if, like we just said, he does a 180 and completely does an about face and says, oh, yeah, no, everyone should get vaccinated. No, the ship has already left the dock. People are not going to listen to him. And that's what extremism in medicine and science and health get you. And I think it's really scary. I spoke to someone else in the in the administration in the medicine and health sector, and I said, "Are you guys getting ready for bird flu? Because I would be." And this person said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, this is not my first rodeo. I covered COVID for the entire country for the #1 network in the country. And let me tell you how it's going to go down. If bird flu becomes a problem, it's going to be the boy who cried wolf. And no one will listen to the media, the government, anyone. And that's going to be a problem. So do you think you should maybe like get ready for something like that. And they weren't that compelled, let's say. And so I think like people like you guys who have been trusted, you know, broadcast journalists for so long, we all understand the gravity and the responsibility that comes along with that. And there's ways to communicate and there's ways not to communicate. And my goal after almost 20 years of speaking to millions and millions of people, whether it's in my office as a doctor one-on-one or on the air, is speak as if their life depends on it. And I'm not looking to exclude massive portions of the population because I might not agree with them, but my job as a doctor is to help take care of them, even if I don't agree with them. And I don't think we're seeing a lot of that now. So I'm happy I'm not on the air talking about this.
Well, Jen, my gosh, thank you for your candor. Thank you for being you, and thank you for always, you know, bringing common sense to any discussion. I mean, that's exactly what our mission statement is, and it's just so great to reconnect with you.
Miss you guys so much. I can't wait till, you know, can I just pitch something for our next one? I think I will come to Connecticut and remember back in the day, this is going to date us all, but remember bulls and bull and bear, bulls and bears. What was it like at the, okay. I think we should do that. I think we should bring that back. I think what we should do is just, we should sit around, maybe Allison, your kitchen table. We could do it at my house. I'm sure I'm going to invite myself over to Dave's house. We could do it there. And we could just, I mean, we don't drink anymore. So we could do, no, I'm just kidding. We could, you know, we could just record the whole reunion in person.
Let's do it.
I love it.
We'd love that. Let's do it. That might be one of those experiential moments where it does call for a drink. That's what I'm saying.
And to wrap this up, people can sign up at joinagenda.com, correct? There's a lot of asks.
It's sold out.
Right, but they can still sign up for your newsletter.
They can sign up for the free weekly newsletter. Actually, this week's comes out tomorrow. And on my Instagram, the link is in my bio to get on the wait list for the next 8-week wellness experiment. And Dave, if you want to join under an assumed name, just let us know what that is so we can support you in a public way.
I'll use my name. I'm not afraid. I'm in. I'm all in.
Awesome.
But we can't wait to be here. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Love you guys.
Love you too. We really appreciate it.
Bye.